You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from this past week as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Speaker, and more. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and I'm going to bring in my two lovely co-hosts. Introducing first, he's the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing, Miranda?
I am doing well. I still love seeing all of your pictures and posts from when you went to, I believe, was it night one of Fyter Fest?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Yeah, in Austin. Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's very cool to see all of those pictures. Really just great to see all fans back at wrestling events.
Absolutely.
So,
Heck yeah.
Yes. And our second co-host, really the third part of this trio, is who?
Who?
It's the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's
Heck
who.
Yeah. I am the pillar. That's it. I'm the pillar of this trio.
Well, I think we're just like a three pillar, like we all are a pillar. It's just three pillars.
It's three. Yes. I was just being, cause I was coming out last. I'm just like, I'm the anchor, the pillar.
The anchor. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I like that.
I like it. I dig it. That's the shirt. The anchor. And it is a big old anchor.
With a question mark.
Oh, that's deep. That's really artistic, actually. Like, people would be like, oh, this is just like an indie thing. You would know. Oh, God, we become those people.
We are on the verge of becoming those people. We quick. Let's talk about something else.
Quick. Let's go back to the masses. Mark out. No. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for another week of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. We hope you enjoy this week's show. As all of our previous shows, we've been doing this now. This is week 65. Actually, even more. Ooh. Maybe a few more.
Yeah.
But,
There's a couple secret shows, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe like 68 or something like that. That's still a while. We've been doing this for a minute here. So thank you to those who are new listeners who are joining us for the first time. Thank you to returning listeners who have listened to us before. We are so appreciative and grateful that you spend time out of your week to listen to us talk and ramble about Lucha Libre. We're pretty good at it, just to let you know.
We do all right.
Right. So this week, lots to go over, as always, because we do cover a lot. We cover all the major promotions. We cover what's happening in Mexico, and plus even more. We have some great information for you this week. If you're going to be heading over to Las Vegas for SummerSlam weekend, we have some information for you later on in the show that you may be interested in. But before we do that, you know how we started. You know how this goes. We got the road back to shows with Brendan. Take it away.
All right. So those of you who have been listening know that the road back to shows started with us talking about Mexico in particular, trying to bring us back to shows. We're there, sort of, except for they backslid again and things went to orange, but then at the same time the governor said, sure, we're orange based on the old requirements, but we're not going to change anything. So basically the government has given up on maintaining the standards. The colors I will probably update them less frequently because until they change their minds and decide to start actually changing behaviors, the things are just pretending to be normal. I'm just getting this weird vibe from like that pre-lockdown period of a couple of weeks where people were desperately trying to pretend everything was normal.
Mm-hmm.
and then it all blew up, and I really don't want that second part to happen. So, but yeah, that's a thing. It's a real story. The government said, yeah, we technically backslid to orange, but we're gonna just keep running like we're yellow. So, and then so that leaves question marks like how's that going to impact upcoming shows. IWRG announced they went from 60% to 40% for their ticket sales, but then when you look at audiences, you don't really know if that's true either. Also, 40% isn't what it's supposed to be at Orange. It's supposed to be 30%. So, I mean, it's just,
They're fudging their own rules at this point.
Everybody's fudging the rules. Everybody's fudging the rules. But that's the story about this week's Road Back to Shows is everybody's fudging the rules. So there you go. Mexico City is complicated. That's the new color. Complicated's a color now.
I like it.
In other news, Jose Contreras Massa, has announced that he is bringing back the Sindicato Nacional de Luchadores, which is a popular lucha libre union that existed from the 60s to the 90s. Those of you who are familiar with wrestling politics will understand that the 90s was a period of time where a lot of things that had existed historically kind of started to fall apart for a number of reasons. So I don't have all the details, but once I saw that it kind of broke up in the 90s, I'm like, yeah, that tracks. There's a lot of the 90s will be at some point past our lifetimes will be viewed as a period of time where the wrestling world really shifted dramatically in a way that is hard to comprehend right now because the repercussions are still being felt. But yeah, Jose Contreras Massa has announced that he wants to bring it back. His focus is having luchadors pool dues and other resources to be able to handle medical emergencies and other health issues, which I think is a grand idea, even more than normal. Like we talked with Gabe on that interview about injuries just happen. But if your job is to travel around and be in public in a pandemic era, it's a good idea to have some insurance if you need to go get yourself examined or you need to be in lockdown for 2 weeks at a time or whatever else. So I think this is a cool idea. Hopefully it gets a lot of momentum. But CMLL has their own union, which is something we've talked about before, and there is, I believe, another union that is existing right now as well. So we'll see how much traction it gets. Definitely keep your ears open for that. And then I like to end the Road Back to Shows with something cool and upbeat and fun. So here we go. GCW, who's been doing a lot of lucha content lately. I'm not going to hate on that. They announced that they're going to have 2 luchadors at an upcoming show on their 903 and 904 shows. So in Chicago. So the names they gave us were Super Crazy and Juventud Guerrera. And in addition to being just kind of cool because those are 2 legends from the WCW era, it also ties in with more news that we're going to have later. So kind of remember that I mentioned I ended this segment with Super Crazy and Juventud Guerrera being in Chicago next month. I'm going to roll right into the Indie Roundup we had a bunch more IWRG, but we had one match that really kind of it's available for free. Kind of snuck in under the radar. I didn't even catch it in the upcoming match announcements, or I would have made a bigger deal out of trying to catch this. At Arena Nalkpan, they had an event on the 25th, and the main event was Diosa Atena, Hijo del Vikingo, and Tonali against Diosa Quetzal, Bandido, and Hijo del El Brije. So, like, those of you who are big on indie names will recognize a lot of those. Those of you who are big on indie names here in America will still recognize Vikingo and Bandido as two of the biggest indie luchadors around right now, and having them on opposite sides is kind of a big, exciting deal for me. Yeah. And then you have Diosa Quetzal and Hijo del El Brije, who are regulars on the indie roundup. All in all, this looks like a really fun match. I haven't seen it. It is up on the Mas Lucha YouTube channel, so I will get a chance to watch it after we record this. But I was slacking and didn't get a chance to see it yet. Diosa Atena, Hijo del Vikingo, and Tonali got the win. But I feel like that's almost a secondary thing to just how awesome this match is going to be. So go check it out. That's my indie roundup. I'm going to give the pitch again. We're running to the point in time. We were talking about this before the show. There's already a ton of shows that are being announced over that SummerSlam weekend just for Las Vegas. So the indie roundup is going to start filling up with a lot of cool things. So this is the time to get your indie wrestlers a little bit more spotlight, a little more shine. Tell me about them. If you're a wrestler, if you're a fan, if you're a promoter, if you're a dog that's on the internet, I don't care. Just send me. They're out there. We'll do socials at the end, but please send me all of your stuff because I'm going to be overwhelmed with shows to cover soon, and I want to get your indie stuff in here as much as I can while I can.
Well, thank you, Brendan, for the road back to shows and the indie roundup. Just definitely want to reiterate what Brendan said about independent wrestlers, promotions, fans. Reach out to us. Again, we have some nuggets of information later on in the show about SummerSlam weekend that you want to stay tuned for. But, help us expand our minds and our worlds by letting us know what's happening in other parts of the country with Lucha Libre. And we're happy to mention it on the show. But up next, we're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Math, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. special guests, and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's straight out of the bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez, as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
As always, a huge thank you to Denise Salcedo, who gives us this week's Lucha Central Central, letting you know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. So up next, we're going to be going into our reviews of this week's shows, and we've changed up the order again. We're going to start this week with AEW. So Dusty, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, this week we had a lot of content in AEW. Starting on Monday night with Dark Elevation, we had Angelico versus Marco Stunt. Angelico was really the star of this match, and he stood above Marco Stunt in both size and ability. It was a great match if you love Angelico. He toys with Marco a bit like a cat with a mouse. He finally gets tired of it, and he hits a Yakuza kick on Marco before getting the wrist clutch torture rack, and it follows and forces Marco to tap. Quick match, but really entertaining. And then we also had the Lucha Bros, Penta El Zero Miedo and Rey Fénix, with Alex Abrahantes versus Alan Five Angels and 10. This was Phoenix's first match in AEW since his win against Chuck Taylor on April 21st's Dark Elevation. So it'd been a while since we'd seen Phoenix, just a little over 3 months, but he's back now. Very exciting. The offense was insane for the entire match. 5 and 10 from the Dark Order both really held their own impressively against the Lucha Bros, including taking some incredible tag team moves from the Lucha Bros, like 10 taking a double stomp backbreaker, and then later he hit a slingshot spear to avoid the double stomp fear factor before they were able to hit it on 5, with Phoenix diving onto 10 so Penta could get the pin without any interference. Great match. There was a ton of ring psychology, and I loved how evenly matched the teams felt. Like, it was a really exciting match for that reason, and just exciting tag team wrestling, just like I love. So I highly recommend you check out Dark Elevation for that match, if nothing else. The whole episode was great, but that match was fantastic. Then Tuesday on Dark, we had Diamante versus Big Swole in a grudge match. It's not often we get a grudge match on AEW Dark because of how packed it was, but this is one of my favorite parts of AEW, kind of toning down the amount of matches we get on Dark every week. It gives the stories and the feuds that occur room to breathe, and it gives us the chance to get invested in things, and it helps the show not just be billed for Dynamite and then a stack of random matches every week like it was during the pandemic. Diamante was extremely dominant in this match. She was the obvious aggressor, but you expect nothing less from Diamante. I have really enjoyed seeing her become such an impressive singles wrestler. We saw her in her fantastic tag team work with Ivalise last year. She was in our tag team of the year at our year-end choices awards, whatever you'd like to call it. I mean, so we know Diamante is incredible, but it's just so cool to see her as a single star now. This match was no exception. She got a huge win over Big Swole after using the ropes to get leverage to make the pin. And based on that, I have a feeling this isn't the end of the feud. I'm selfishly hoping it isn't, because it feels like they could easily take it up to the next level, especially if they had like a stipulation match going forward. I think that there's more to this than they got the chance to debut in just a few minutes on Dark. So hopefully there's more to it. And then on Wednesday night, you know what that means. It's Dynamite. First up, we had Proud and Powerful versus FTR. It was actually hard to judge this match by standard criteria, because due to the injury that Cash suffered, it ended quickly.
Mhm.
But this was a strong and angry Proud and Powerful right from the start. Konnan came out looking like an OG. They were amazing. Proud and Powerful used an amazing, just an incredible two-man backflip powerbomb combo. They had both mat-based and aerial offense. There were a couple of tributes to Eddie Guerrero, including a fantastic frog splash. They just generally exceeded and out-wrestled FTR throughout the entire match. But then Cash Wheeler gets a cut on the ring post, and all of a sudden everything was over with FTR getting the win.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
So I even without the injury I think the injury, the short version of this, I think the injury is the silver lining. I'll get to why in a second. But even without that, I thought this was a match that was suffering from being on TV instead of on one of their bigger events, even if it's
Well, that was the first matchup between them, they just put it in the middle of a show with no fanfare, like the middle of Dynamite. Yeah,
exactly.
Card placement was strange.
You got almost out of nowhere. They had to remind people, the commentary had to remind people of the heat between these two teams as to, and why it was all there. There wasn't any kind of build towards this, before we got this match. And then, we got some really strong pieces. Like you said, it was a sound match, but it could have been so much more with just a little bit more. So I'm hoping that because of the injury kind of taking the wind out of what they were going to do, that they can convert that into story and make this into a bigger build for this, right? Like accidentally doing what they should have done in the first place.
Yeah.
It does feel like this is just a stepping stone in the Pinnacle versus Inner Circle feud. But it's weird they would use this match. Like, this was kind of anticipated for a while, then they pulled the trigger when it wasn't as hot, and just strange choices. And despite the match getting called early, the next match we're going to discuss, Christian and Jurassic Express versus the Hardy Family Office, it was very quick. It was a fun match. The crowd loved Jungle Boy as usual. Angelico was at his swaggy and dancy best. There was an amazing spot where Luchasaurus suplexed Angelico, both members of Private Party at the same time. And then undefeated Christian Cage got the pin on Mark Quinn after a powerbomb, or a chokeslam rather, from Luchasaurus just after 5 minutes. It was a fun match. It was probably more fun live, but it went too quickly in my opinion, and it offered very little substance. Just fun.
There is one thing in there. I had my fan moment with this. We got to see Angelico and Matt Hardy. Dude.
Yes.
Not Christian. We've seen Angelico and Matt Hardy for a while, but we got to see Angelico and Christian rapping. So you get this kind of generational thing. Two guys with similar body types. Two guys that I personally really love. So yeah. Sorry.
I loved the match. It was a lot of fun, but it just didn't feel like it had much gravity or had much effect on things going forward. And,
I feel like overall the big things were big and everything else just felt small, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like the big moments,
absolutely,
were the big moments. Like everybody remembers, the entrances for, Dark Order versus, the Elite. Everybody remembers, what happened with Jericho and Gage, So I feel like those seem to take so much of the spotlight that, there was a lot of solid matches and a solid work, and but those just kind of took the breath away of the entire show.
I don't disagree with that. I think that there was, like we were talking about, the lack of build up really helped create that. And I think they created some of that problem instead of suffering from that problem, but I agree that the end result was.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because I do think at the end of the day, especially the Elite versus the Dark Order, think about who's in the Elite. You know, they tend to take up much of the space in the room when it comes to some of those bigger matches and storylines.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, sorry, we digress.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's absolutely true. We'll get to that a little bit about the Jericho Gage thing here in a second. But first, we have Thunder Rosa. She made her big return to Dynamite this week against Julia Hart. Fresh off the triumph of signing with AEW, she was all elite. We mentioned that last week. This week, we have Thunder Rosa's return to Dynamite. This is her first Dynamite appearance since May the 12th, and only her second Dynamite appearance since the star-making Lights Out match with Britt Baker on March 11th of this year. So hopefully her contract status now will have an effect on her appearance. She was just too good to be on Dark and Dark Elevation all the time. And if she's going to be a legitimate contender for Britt Baker going forward, they need to have her on Dynamite. So it was, very exciting. I hope that now that, she's kind of made it on Dynamite, we'll be seeing a lot more of her. But this was the Rosa we want to see. She was like a bulldog in this match. It was incredible. She just constantly threw in just intense offense. And she completely dominated Julia Hart the entire match before picking up a 3 count with a beautiful Thunder Driver at the 3-minute and 59-second mark, which was likely the longest 4 minutes of Julia Hart's life. Like,
she looked so nervous. That was Julia Hart on time.
Yeah, I mean,
it's fair. She's
yeah.
And I believe this makes Thunder Rosa now number 1.
Yes,
in
number
the women's
1 contender.
Number 1 contender. So I do like some of the long-term storytelling that they're telling with this. Hopefully, some kind of rematch with Britt Baker. And I could see why maybe Nyla was meant to kind of be a program in between. But, again, the competition wasn't strong with Julia Hart. Again, that's something that they struggle with. But I think the storytelling and the long-term kind of game that they're playing with this is one of the better ones.
I also want to give a little bit of a nod to the more subtle storytelling they did. Rosa was wearing black and gold this time, which is the colors of all of the Dynamite promotions. So she's clearly doing that to be invested in the I'm all in with All Elite at this point, which is a masterful touch. And since I know that Rosa makes a lot of her own gear, I know she's probably responsible for that decision making. So good job.
Yeah, very cool. And then we also, after we had a very interesting twist, after the Nick Gage Chris Jericho match, when Jericho defeated Nick Gage, and I just have to mention there was a wild spot where they used the pizza cutter and then it immediately cut to a Domino's commercial. That was amazing.
But I think Domino's did they have to put out a statement?
Yeah, they did. They were mad and they're threatening to pull their spots over it, and they disavowed any knowledge or involvement in the telecast or what was going to happen.
Smart for them. Smart. I mean, they already had problems with that. They had a marketing campaign that ended badly for them before, so they're really going to be fussy about it.
But
match on fast forward.
It was rough. There were light tubes. I can't stand the glass and the light tubes. And there was, it was easily, I mean, maybe not the bloodiest match that has been on Dynamite. Lights Out was quite bloody, but this was definitely the most hardcore match, I guess you would call it.
Violent.
The most violent match. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
And Jericho wins. Gage said, "What are you going to do? Hit me with something I've never been hit with before?" And he did twice. He gave him the green mist, and then he gave him the Judas effect. And so he picked up the win. I liked that. But after he beat Nick Gage, we learned what the next labor of Jericho would be from MJF, and it was announced that he would be facing Juventud Guerrera next week.
Juicy one.
So exciting. It'll be at AEW Dynamite Homecoming. It's such a cool announcement. It's been a long time since we saw Juvi in a promotion this large, even longer since we saw him on TNT. We will definitely have a review of that next week, but the juice is back, y'all. I'm excited. I cannot wait to see Juvi. It looks like he's going to have the mask again from the kind of promotional artwork. Yeah, I hope they keep the microphone away from him so he gets to come back. But I am excited to see Juvi.
That's always been his biggest Achilles heel.
He loves to talk about himself on the microphone.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, we will check out Lucha Central for news and updates when that happens. We will definitely be talking about it next week. As you can tell, we're all big fans of Juventud, so this is a very exciting announcement for us.
I don't know if I want to use the word fan to describe my relationship with him. He is a very interesting person.
Very interesting.
That's an understatement.
Well, Dusty, thank you so much for that wrap up of this week in AEW. A very, very busy week. Make sure you check out the results for all those shows on luchacentral.com. But Dusty, your work isn't done yet because we have this week in WWE, including some, kind of a sleeper match on Main Event.
Yeah, we did. We mentioned it last week. That there was an Angel Garza match. And I said we'd review it this week. And all I knew at the time was that Angel Garza was in it. Well, it was Angel Garza versus Drew Gulak, and it was great. So good. I loved this match. We've talked before on the show about how WWE just doesn't seem to be able to use Angel Garza properly. But I'm hoping that changes now that the crowds are back. When he tore the pants off, women in the crowd went nuts. It was incredible. His work with the crowd, his charisma. It's easy to forget how perfectly Garza plays to the crowd and with the crowd because most of our experience with Garza on the main roster for the last year and a half has been without crowds. And working the crowd is one of his greatest attributes. So it will really be exciting to see if he can kind of capitalize on that charisma. We've seen people like Bryan Danielson use it and, where they just cannot be denied because of their ability and charisma. It's rare, but if anybody can do it, it's Angel Garza. He has a great look, he's a total package. This was such a cool match. The last time these two met was actually on Raw, where Garza shoved a rose up Gulak's ass. So there's bad blood there. There has to be. Somebody shoves a rose up your ass, there's bad blood. That's one of the
You don't forget that.
No.
Just don't forget that.
And Garza was here to add insult to injury because he was the star of the match. I've mentioned how he worked the crowd, but his work in the ring was even better. Everything looked so effortless and crisp. He had a bridge German suplex for a 2 count that looked just stunning. The wing clipper finisher was fantastic. This match was far too good to have been stuck on Main Event, especially considering what they've been giving us on Raw lately. They messed up. Everybody should have seen this one. This was a great, great match. It's on Hulu on Main Event. I think Main Event's also on Peacock, but I'm not certain.
I can't confirm that. The match is also on YouTube.
Oh,
and we know that
excellent.
The WWE looks at the YouTube views. So if you want them to notice this and decide maybe to put more time into matches like this, go on YouTube and watch it a dozen times.
Yeah, I'll have to watch it on YouTube again. It's worth watching again. It was an incredible match. And
I also want to do a blatant bit of self-promotion because you're referencing a conversation we had on the Chairshot Network when we're talking about Angel. So,
yes, just this week. Yeah.
Yes, we were on the Wednesday edition of Chairshot Radio, which you can find on thechairshot.com. You may be listening to us on thechairshot.com because we also air the Lucha Central Weekly podcast on that network. But we had a great discussion on the Wednesday edition of Chairshot Radio as far as the good, the bad, and how to fix, Lucha Libre in the USA. And Angel Garza was mentioned quite a few times.
Yeah. mean, he's got everything it takes to be a star. He has everything. You talk about grabbing the brass ring. He's grabbed it in every appearance he's made. He's made the best of literally every single thing WWE's given him, and he's still on main event. So yeah, check out the podcast at chairshot.com. We got a lot to talk about there. But we also had SmackDown this week. Friday night on SmackDown, we had Jimmy Uso with Jay at ringside against Dominic Mysterio with Ray at ringside. Dominic jumped Jimmy right away as the match starts. He looked really great and very dominant until Jay was able to pull his brother out of a 619 attempt. Then Rey Mysterio got involved by hitting Jey Uso with a seated senton. We go to commercial. After we come back, Dominic is still the dominant wrestler. He attempts a Three Amigos in homage to his poppy, but Jimmy was able to fight him off before eating a frog splash and a 619. But after a distraction outside the ring with Ray and Jay fighting, Dominic ate a super kick from Jimmy, and then the Usos did the worst Samoan drop I have ever seen. I mean, look for it on Botchamania. It was bad. I mean, somehow, even after that travesty, Jimmy Uso still won with Jay leaning on him behind the ref's back. It was what it was, I guess, but it wasn't good.
I want to point out that this is saying a lot because they were in the 90s. There were a lot of people who did Samoan drops, and most of them were not good.
Yeah, this one was bad.
The bar was already low, and they found a way to cut under.
They limboed right under the bar. I can't even see it behind them now. But at least we're getting seems like the story is going further with the Mysterios. We saw them recently paired with Edge. It looks like John Cena is coming into the picture, maybe against Roman. And so it would be very high profile to put the Mysterios and John Cena together. It's about as good as you could get in WWE, short of being world champion. So that's exciting. I hope this is what it's building to, but right now they're just kind of making the Mysterios look like chumps, and I don't care for it.
Yeah.
A lot of regression just to make the Usos look better, so to make Roman look better, which is ultimately what this whole thing is about. Yeah. This is what it's all to make Roman look strong.
It is. I mean, like we mentioned John Cena, but that's really the thing. It's like Roman is unbeatable. Roman is, you can't outstrength him. Everything. Like he's smarter than you, he's stronger than you, and he looks better than you. And WWE wants to make sure that you never forget it. So,
well, in fairness, they need to cement him in that position because we also spent years just hating the Roman push.
Yes.
So
Forever people wanted them to turn him heel, and as soon as they did, people were like, yes, Roman! Like, that's what we wanted.
Yeah, exactly. They could have done that a long time ago, but they needed to see all the things that weren't working.
Yeah, that's true. But because they spent so long not doing it, they do have to remind us all the time that Roman is king heel right now. King heel.
Well, and the touch of putting him with Paul Heyman was excellent because it gets that, not quite that Brock Lesnar rub, but we get that vibe that this is the guy. He's the top guy. It's almost impossible to beat him just because of that association we saw between Heyman and Brock Lesnar. And really, Heyman is more deferential to Roman than he was to Brock, which is interesting too. And yeah, great dynamic. I like what they're doing. I just wish it wasn't at the expense of the Mysterios and to make the Usos look strong. There's been, some issues with the Usos lately, but I
agree. I don't like it at the expense of the Mysterios. I'm also being a little fair that they do need to do this.
Well, and truly one of the highest profile. I mean, Rey Mysterio is a legend, and if you want your guys to look dominant and tough and smarter than the other guys, somebody like Rey Mysterio, if you can get over on him, you could beat almost any. He's been everywhere. He's done everything there is. And so, I mean, it does make them look much stronger than they are. And I like that. More dominant, I guess, than they were. It's advancing the Usos, but I just wish that they had somebody else, but it would probably be Lucha House Party, and I would still be just as disappointed. So
I'd be more disappointed because that's more of the same for them.
yeah. But yeah, check out luchacentral.com. After the shows, we'll have SmackDown, Raw, maybe main event updates. We'll keep covering them on the show each week, and we will be back next week with all of the new WWE happenings.
Thank you, Dusty. Up next, we're going to go into this week's NXT. And some pretty big moments that are setting some things up for the next takeover. First off, Samoa Joe came out towards the beginning of the show and pretty much asked William Regal 3 things. One is that he wanted to resign from his position, effective, I guess, immediately, as I forget the formal title, some kind of special enforcer. He wanted to be reactivated as part of the NXT roster, and he wanted a chance at Karrion Kross at TakeOver 36. And all 3 conditions were met. So we are going to see Karrion Kross versus Samoa Joe at TakeOver 36. And this is going to be, really a fight that fans are just, thrilled to see. It does kind of feel like we already know what's going to happen, based off of Karrion's presence on Monday Night Raw. But who knows? They may decide to pull the plug on that, or they may decide to do something. I find it very interesting now, too, that if Samoa Joe is back as an active roster member on NXT, does that mean we may eventually see him on one of the other shows too? So that's just wishful thinking. But we do have that set for NXT TakeOver 36, Samoa Joe versus Karrion Kross. Next up, really one of the biggest highlights and moments of the night was when Raquel Gonzalez came out to address the NXT Women's Division. She came out with Dakota Kai, and Raquel Gonzalez just said the truth. She's beaten, a good portion of the women's division with Xia Li last week. She's also, beat Mercedes Martinez. She also, I'm trying to remember everyone that she's faced. But I mean, she's really established her. Ember Moon, Shotzi Blackheart. So she has already established herself as one of, the, most dominant NXT women's champions in the history of NXT. And Dakota Kai, stepped in saying that, as long as, Dakota Kai was going to be in her corner, she had her back, she'd always be champion. However, well, that was the case up until the point where Dakota Kai gave her the running boot to the face of Raquel Gonzalez. So it does look like now, really over a year and a half after they first came together, we finally are getting the Dakota Kai Raquel Gonzalez feud, and it's likely for the NXT Women's Championship. So that does seem as well like something we're going to get at TakeOver 36. And with the history that they have, the partnership that they started with, and now, progressing on to this program, it's very exciting. Though I don't know, Dakota Kai is being presented as the heel in this, but Raquel isn't necessarily a pure baby face. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to play off this dynamic, because Gonzalez has been the heel in a lot of her programs, since becoming even before becoming the women's champion. But as women's champion has been the heel in mostly all of her matches, if all of them. So now that they're presenting Dakota Kai as the heel, it is very interesting. I also am very fascinated to see how this will go in the ring because of the obvious size difference, other than Dakota Kai knowing Raquel Gonzalez better than anyone, so maybe being able to counter some of those big power moves that she makes. So this is going to be something that I'm going to be keeping an eye out for over the next few weeks, and I have a feeling we're going to see that build up to TakeOver 36.
Everybody that listens to the show knows that I'm watching this like
exciting.
But I think the timing on this move is perfect. I think to the point that they made in the promo that you were referencing, she has cleaned out most of the upper half of the women's division in NXT at this point. The easiest way to add kind of impetus and curiosity on it is to have her be more of the baby face now. And that the way that you pull the trigger on that is you have this inevitable betrayal. We all knew it was going to happen.
Yes.
From the moment they announced that they were hanging out together, we knew one of them was going to turn on the other one. And it was just a matter of time. But I feel like this is the beginning of a big face turn for Raquel, and we're going to get to see a slight change in attitude and style, and that's really exciting to me. So this could be the beginning of something really cool and really big in Raquel's career, and it's very exciting to me.
It is. Up next, we had a fun match. Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter versus Jessie Kamea and Frankie Monet. Again, Frankie Monet has seemingly started to kind of take over the Robert Stone brand. No Aaliyah. Again, we haven't officially seen her on another brand, but it was rumored that there was some type of internal trade between Mandy Rose and Aaliyah. So she is no longer with the Robert Stone brand. Frankie Monet has kind of inserted herself somewhat as kind of the new leader. And as we always talk about, and I mentioned, Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter always seem to be doing just, whether in leaps and bounds or minor changes, but every match is some great improvement. And this was just a very fun match. There was a distraction towards the end of the match where Robert Stone threw in his purse and he tried to get Frankie to use it, but she didn't know what to do with it. It only distracted her. And then due to the distraction, Casey and Kaden were able to hit their combination, their finishing maneuver, which is a net breaker by Kaden into that 450 splash by Casey.
I'm sorry, did you say he threw in his purse?
Yes.
Yeah, his purse. Okay. It was awesome, like hilarious.
Yeah.
He has a purse. For those of you who know,
it could be a satchel. It could be I'm not exactly sure.
It's a purse.
It's a purse. My European carry-all.
Yeah, his bag. He threw it in.
No, I had to clarify this. You said it that way, and I'm like, Miranda does not choose her words helter-skelter. So I wanted to clarify.
In doing my research as well, lots of sources claimed that this was a purse, so I did decide to go with the majority description.
I thought it was a purse, so yeah.
Okay. Carry on. I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify that point.
Let the record show that the audience has declared it a purse. We did see, again, just some dissension between Robert Stone and Frankie Monet. Much more of a comical storyline right now, which, again, Frankie's forte. We saw that all in Impact. Same thing with Robert Stone, too, when he was in Impact as well. So kind of leveraging that humorous side in this story. It's an ends to a means. Hopefully they build her up to be a title contender, which I absolutely would see something for her but also career longevity and thinking about what the WWE likes. They like people who are able to do a little bit of everything. And we're starting to see NXT being a little bit more on the comedic side with some of their, certain storylines. The last thing I want to mention for NXT was a little bit of a confrontation between Legado del Fantasma and Hit Row. Hit Row was facing Imperium, kind of as a way to establish, possibly some new, number one tag team contenders. During that match, Santos Escobar came out and he sent Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza out, to cause a distraction. However, and it did seem to work. They caused enough of a distraction for Imperium to win. And then after the match, Top Dollar came out, he was out. Top Dollar laid out pretty much everyone in Legado del Fantasma, and then they were kind of sent running away by Isaiah Swerve Scott when he took out a steel chair. So I believe next week we are going to get Hit Row versus Legado del Fantasma in action in a match, which kind of surprised me. I thought maybe they were going to do this build up more towards TakeOver, but maybe they do, the trios action next week to build up maybe to a singles match at TakeOver between Swerve and Santos. But that storyline is continuing, and if anything, again, I mean, to have this kind of faction warfare within NXT this way is pretty good for the NXT mid card. So, overall, this episode is truly working to build up to some big things at TakeOver 36, which is happening Sunday. That is August 22nd.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big weekend. Lots of wrestling happening in Las Vegas, as we've been teasing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Up next, Brendan, we have some news in Ring of Honor.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a weird mixed bag. So, on Ring of Honor TV this week, there was not really anything lucha-centric. So I still recommend watching it. The content was good. It was some fun and interesting stuff, but if you are pressed for time and you're only here to find out where to find your lucha content, this wasn't your episode this week. But then we got announcements for big stuff in the future, and I'm going to start with the timeline the closest. The Women of Honor tournament begins. The Quest for Gold begins soon, and they have announced one of the first round pairings, which goes back to my theory of lucha and lucha violence, because the first round pairing that I'm looking at right now is Alex Gracia and Miranda Morales. So, it's a big one. It's going to be a banger of a match, and I'm super excited that it's a banger of a match, but it means one of these two women isn't going to continue on past the first round.
And then we talked about that in tournaments all the time, where, sometimes they'll do different styles in first round matches, but it seems a lot with lucha styles, they will pair them up in tournaments early on.
In the opening round. That's why I always call it the lucha on lucha violence. It's terrible. It's terrible in that respect. It's awesome in that you get to see, you get a guaranteed banger match in the early round. So, that starts this weekend. Do tune in for that match. We will definitely be talking about that next week because, as we've established, these are both women with significant lucha backgrounds. One of them represents it a little more, but they both have it. So, check that out. Then, they announced more matches for Glory by Honor. This time we're focusing on night 2. So last week we announced a couple of matches for night 1, which was, the big one being LFI versus, Violence in a big faction versus faction brawl. But this week we're getting, night 2 announcements, and it's a little more nuanced and it's kind of interesting stuff. So first we got Flip Gordon is going to team with Demonic Flamita against the Briscoes. So you have you have Flamita here, who's being evil, and Flip Gordon, who's the mercenary, so he's evil more often than he's good, against the Briscoes, who are doing this big comeback story. So I'm gonna guess the Briscoes are probably gonna win, but since it's on a pay-per-view, it's gonna be a barn burner of a match. Hopefully Flamita has his breakout performance here. I really want him to do better in ROH, and he's good, but he can be at that top tier right next to Bandito, which brings me to the next announced match, which is Bandito and Rey Horus versus Rush and Dragon Lee. Like, this is for a throwaway tag team match that's supposed to just build around the main event scene. This is amazing. And I'm super happy that it's on a pay-per-view, because it's going to be longer and more exciting as a result of this. The main story obviously is Bandito and Rush, who are feuding over the championship at this time, but you also have Dragon Lee, who they are officially saying on ROH channel, so this is story now, that he was a little hesitant to attack Bandito when he won. So there may be a little bit of shifting of factions going on here. Dragon Lee may be leaving LFI, or he may be clashing with LFI. Lots of fun things could be coming out of this. And then you have Rey Horus, who is just always good. So, I mean, I always say this about their pay-per-views. I always know I'm going to wind up doing it, but then they give me a couple match announcements, and I'm like, okay, already earned my $30 or my Honor Club membership or whatever it is you're going to charge me to watch these things. I believe these are going to both be available on Honor Club. This is, again, that same SummerSlam weekend. This is going to be the 20th and 21st. So lots of wrestling content for you to catch, even if you're not in Las Vegas. There will be lots of wrestling content for you to watch and lots of lucha content. But that's ROH. Did you have anything you needed to add to this, Miranda? I know.
No, it was just, the Quest for Gold tournament, like you said, first round matchups are happening, very soon. And yes, the Miranda Alizé, versus Alex Gracia matchup is one I'm very much looking forward to. But also a bummer that means one of them will not continue on.
Right.
So make sure you stay tuned. Ring of Honor is continuously having great Lucha Libre content, and it's only adding more with the Quest for Gold tournament starting very soon. Brennan, you talked a bit about that weekend being very popular. We already talked about NXT. We talked about WWE, NXT, Ring of Honor, and now, if you don't mind, there's a few events happening during SummerSlam weekend that I know you want to let our listeners know about. So go ahead.
Well, I'm going to start with the ones that are close to home here. Masked Republic is sponsoring a couple of signings that are, or not just some signings and some other and live podcasts. So there is going to be, as they tend to like to do, a Keeping It 100 live event, which will be taking place at the Nerd Bar on Friday the 20th. The tickets are available for that at Lucha Central's Lucha Shop. They're going quick. It is going to probably sell out. But the other one, which is kind of a big deal, and I haven't heard much about it yet, so I really am excited about this. There's going to be an Andrade signing, also at the Nerd Bar, and tickets are available at Lucha Shop as well. luchashop.com, or you can go to to Masked Republic to get the link, or you can just Google Andrade in Las Vegas and it's the top hit. That's how I got there to start with. But give us some clicks. Go to some of our websites first, please.
Yes. You can also go to Nerd Bar LV on Instagram. They also have links on where you can buy tickets for that meet and greet, and also for the Keeping It 100 live show.
Yeah, and the Nerd Bar is hosting, for those of you who are going to be in Las Vegas, is hosting wrestling-themed events the whole weekend. So you've got some 80s wrestlers. You've even got Misha Tate, who's an amateur wrestler and MMA star. And you've got modern indie wrestlers, the Andrade signing, the Keeping It 100 podcast. So the Nerd Bar will be a great place to be if you're in Las Vegas that weekend. Mm-hmm. There is, yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Just that it's going to be part of a larger event called World Wrestling Fest that's happening throughout that weekend. Just an interesting note here. I'm looking at the flyer, not necessarily related to Masked Republic, but lucha related. Apparently, Juvi, the man himself that we talked about, is going to be a special guest DJ. He's going to have his own DJ.
Yes. These are
that
both
is
things.
Incredible.
So Dusty, I know you're not going, but if you want to see Juventud Guerrera do a DJ set,
oh, I really do.
You kind of need to come to Vegas.
So these
my heart broke just now.
sorry, Dusty. Yeah. Both things that they did during the Lucha Expo in Las Vegas at the Nerd Bar as well. Spoiler, Dusty, Juvi was late to his own gig.
Well, Axl Rose is too, so maybe it's his trademark quality.
But a good time was had, and you can probably look forward to the possibility of Juvi doing this at Expo Lucha. So I can wrap that around to make kind of Masked Republic again. There are there's going to be other indie lucha matches going on over the weekend in Las Vegas. So I will be in attendance at a few of those, but I really wanted to highlight the Andrade and Keeping It 100, because not only are our bosses doing it, but those are legit exciting events that you really want to have a chance to. And I'm sure they'll put the audio up for the Keeping It 100 at some point. So
yeah, and keep on reminding you all. Don't forget, don't worry. We'll keep on plugging in those reminders over the next few weeks just to make sure you know what's going down in Las Vegas at SummerSlam weekend. And these are all things just within, the past few days, Brendan and I have started to learn more about and started to really push out there. So yeah.
Yeah. I started talking to Ruben with Mass Republic, so hopefully we'll start getting more details on other things that are going to be happening. But keep your ears open.
Yes. Keep your ears open. All right, up next, it's that time of the episode. Every week we bring you This Week in Lucha Libre History with Dusty.
Yeah, that's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera for information, birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos, and even more. And it's all free, and it's all about Lucha Libre at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week, we've broken from our usual format, and we're honoring Legends of Lucha Libre superstar Jose Luis Alvarado, known in the ring as Brazo de Plata and Super Porky. He tragically passed away earlier this week at the age of 58. The Alvarado family legacy is huge in Lucha, especially in Mexico. It all started with Shadito Cruz, who was a luchador, and he was father to the Los Brazos team. And they quickly became one of the most popular and influential families in all of wrestling, but especially Lucha. The Brazos were well known throughout Mexico and the southwestern United States for their trios work, but the legacy continued beyond that, with Jose having been the father of Maximo, Goya Kong, and Psycho Clown, who originally debuted as Brazo de Plata Jr. before getting his own character. Other members of the younger generation of the Brazo family / Alvarado family are their cousins La Mascara and Aramis, who you may be aware of. We've talked about Aramis a lot on the show. So, yeah, I mean, like a big family, their influence, their power, and their impact in Lucha Libre as a family cannot be denied. Jose started out at the age of 14 on the independent circuit, and by 1981, at the age of 18, he had won the NWA America's Tag Team Championship and the NWA World Tag Team Championship with his brother Brazo de Oro while working for NWA Hollywood. Then they later went back to Mexico and joined CMLL. He had a 20-year run there from 1985 to 2005. He left CMLL to go work for WWE in their ill-fated juniors division on SmackDown, and it was here that he officially gained the moniker Super Porky, but he never really saw much in-ring action, no real in-ring match in WWE. So he went back to Mexico and he joined AAA for the first time in 2006, and he stayed with them until 2009 before going back to the independent circuit for the rest of his career. But a lot of times, the older guys, the independent circuit, it's nothing exciting, just appearances, but not for Super Porky. He wrestled for IWRG. He wrestled for Perros del Mal. He even went back to CMLL and wrestled matches. He also, in his career, competed in at least 37 Apuestas matches, and he won 23 of those 37 with some incredible winning streaks in there. And this week, we are focusing on 2 trios matches he was part of during his run with the Brazos. They were chosen for us and for the show this week by our fearless leader, Mr. Kevin Kleinrock, so he deserves all the credit for the choices. Great matchups. Our first match is from October the 21st, 1988, in the Nuevo Leon, when Los Brazos faced Los Villanos in a mask versus mask team Apuestas match. Yeah. Alvarado family versus Mendoza family. Incredible. It was the capstone and one of the most famous and bloody feuds in Lucha history, especially for the trios in Lucha history, before they lost their masks, but that did nothing to hinder Los Brazos. They enjoyed top of the card popularity for several more years. And in an interesting note, at the time it was seen as almost sacrilege that this match occurred in Nuevo Leon because they had taken a bigger payment to have the match there instead of in Mexico City. And so they were seen as kind of selling out to get the biggest payday for their Apuestas match instead of having it where they'd had their most bloody battles. Kind of an interesting touch. It wouldn't be as big of a deal now, I don't think, but it was interesting that it was then. Yeah. This was a best of 3 falls match with each team winning a fall. And then in the final fall, the eliminations began, leaving only the older brothers before Villano won, defeated Brazo de Oro, and the Brazos were unmasked.
Yeah. Whew. I mean, it can't be understated how important this is to Lucha Libre. This one match.
Yes.
Famously, we've talked about that on the show, but I'm going to remind people, famously, trios didn't happen until the emergence of the Brazos, the Villanos, and the Missionaries de la Muerte, right? And those 3 all were doing the bloody feud. This was the first time we'd had an Apuestas match for multiple masks, I believe, that may not be...
I believe it's the first trio versus trio, mask versus mask, Apuestas match.
Yeah.
And they had been masked for about a decade apiece. Well, the Villanos since the early 70s, I believe. Yeah. And so it was a very important match in Mexico.
2 of the most famous masks in all of Mexico at that time.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows Santo, but at the same time, they knew that Pink Panther mask and they knew those Brazo masks. Like everybody would be able to pick those out of a crowd. Sorry, I just keep butting in with.
I mean. As I was going to say, I think for me, the biggest thing was really how they revolutionized trios wrestling. And that being such a unique aspect in Mexico that I think, eventually grew out to other parts of the world. And to me, that was something I was not as aware of until learning and watching the videos and, just being able to read more, about the beginning of Brazo de Plata's career and the entire family build. And really having, as you said, Dusty, he's worked literally a little bit everywhere, especially with CMLL in North America here, in AAA, in IWRG. And I think just not only that, but the presence as a family unit in a much bigger way. Again, especially in Lucha Libre, family dynasties, are cornerstone of wrestling there. And that is a family business. So without Brazo de Plata, we wouldn't have some of the other wrestlers that we have now or have seen prior to. So it feels much more like a domino effect, and how his presence not only influenced a specific type of wrestling within trios wrestling, but also the family lineage and how we still see that to this day.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch on his WWE run too, because Dusty mentioned that it was I'd completely forgotten it was part of their. I remember Super Porky, and I remember but that's the point I want to make. He was bigger than the story they were bringing him into. Like,
absolutely.
If you say the name Super Porky, people who were watching wrestling at that time know who we're talking about. They couldn't tell you that he was in a feud with Mr. JL, unless they Googled it, right? But that was, so that tells you a lot about the charisma and impact of this man, that he can come to another country and have a fantastic run with a minimum of wrestling. Just, in another language, in another country, people remember him. They don't remember any of the garbage that surrounded all of that. And I'm sorry, Vince McMahon, but that was not good. He was good. He was a shining star in that. So that tells you a lot about the importance of this man, the skill of this man. I'm going to keep ranting. So go carry on, Dusty.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a testament to how over he is and like his work as a entertainer in addition to his work as a wrestler. He was incredible. The second match we had this week was also a trios match between Los Brazos and Los Fantasticos, comprised of Kung Fu, Kato Kung Lee, and Blackman. They were a team comprised of 3 different luchadors who all had martial arts backgrounds and martial arts based characters when that was very popular. And they provided a fun and high flying style to contrast the Brazos' mat-based offense. Up until this point, they had largely been bloody brawlers, like in their feud with Vianos. And so this was, a nice, interesting change. What did you think of this match, Brendan?
Well, so we talked a lot about his comedy aspects, and we talked a lot. You mentioned, so to relate this to our regular vernacular here, this was very much at the surface a Texas versus California match. You had the brawling style, and then you had the more high flying, energetic style. But you got to see so much of an injection of comedy, and it wasn't in like an offensive, like, why are you stopping the match for this comedy bit sort of way, but it really kept the pace fun and interesting. Like it wasn't just, I'm tired of seeing somebody get beat up. There was, it was all kinds of engaging, and then you could even, like, the Brazos did comedy on their side of it too. Like, at one point, one of them got thrown into a chair, and he did it in this really over the top physical way where his butt wound up in the air, and he just kind of held that pose for like a half minute while the camera was on him, and then his friend had to pull him out of the chair. It was, good stuff.
Yeah.
And it just showed the diversity of this team, and part of the magic is that they could do a little bit of everything too. We talked about the
Absolutely.
WWE, like guys that could do a little bit of everything. But what I found myself noticing with that is that, like, they can do a little bit of everything, but they found the magic to make it work in the match. And I'm going to I don't want to throw specific names out there, but there are teams that do spots very similar to what I saw in this match that are on major promotions right now that I don't like the pacing of the match or how the spots are injected. And I was looking at it going, but this is the same thing. Why do I like this? And I don't like the way they're doing it. And there's something intangible about the way they did it that made me like it versus what the other teams are doing that I don't like. So that was kind of my big takeaway. Miranda?
I think the only thing for me, more out of curiosity, is how much of that was planned and how much of that was just going with the flow with the comedy. Like, that was really, it's like, I wonder how much of this did they maybe lay out. And I know a lot in wrestling in general, some of the best, funniest spots are just the ones that kind of fall into place.
Just happened.
And yeah, so I felt like the action in this match was a great balance of entertaining. I think it's really hard balance of entertaining, but also, you had your physical action. And that felt like, something that you could plug in now in a TV episode for a major promotion. And I think, you would still get that exact fan reaction. And that fan, the balance of humorous, but also entertaining and exciting as a wrestling match. But yeah, that was the only thing I was, the great mystery, to me is I wonder how much did they plan? And as they were planning it, exactly that, a lot of times when you're just having fun in a match, it's just because of things that, happen, or you come up with the spot that, you think is hilarious or would be fun, and the crowd receives it way better than anticipated.
Maybe that is all the difference. Maybe it was those matches were more organic and it feels more forced when the other teams are doing it these days.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, classic. Good point.
Yeah, and check out luchacentral.com. They have tons of stuff with Brazo de Plata or Super Porky, however you want to refer to him. Tons of content. Check out YouTube. The matches we discussed are on YouTube. Definitely go check him out. The legacy he left behind, it was hard to recognize, I think, during his lifetime, but now that he's passed, I think we're going to see him for what he was, and it's interesting how much more content there is available now than there was just a few months ago. Like, people are really thinking about him. There's tons of stuff. Yeah, so check out Super Porky / Brazo de Plata online. Definitely check out luchacentral.com. They've got information and a tribute to him there as well.
Thank you, Dusty. I mean, you already mentioned some of the great things that are available on luchacentral.com, but Brendan, do you mind telling our listeners what else they can find on luchacentral.com?
Let's do this. So if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's really time to do it. Luchacentral.com is your online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events will be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives and all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And here we go. This is it. If you haven't gone there because you're afraid that, something weird is going to happen and I'm going to run out and steal your credit card or whatever, it's not going to happen. It's free. It's free. Your money is safe in the hands of luchacentral.com because they're not going to charge you for showing up. You may buy a bunch of merchandise like I do, but that's on you. luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
We're going to jump into some Impact Wrestling, and we're going to be doing things a little bit differently for this segment, because there's two stories that I want to talk about and get some thoughts from Dusty and Brendan. And again, take it with a grain of salt. With Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer newsletter reported two stories over the past week about people who may be coming to Impact, people who should have come to Impact. I'll start with the first one as who should have been at Impact, and that was Andrade. He did report that there was plans to have Andrade show up at the end of Slammiversary instead of Jay White. And that they were going to do a program with Andrade, who would be managed by Konnan, against Kenny Omega, and that Kenny Omega would be teaming up, of course, with Gallows and Anderson, and then Andrade would team up with two other people, and they'd be doing some trios work up until Triple Mania, and that's when we finally see the one-on-one match. However, Impact and Andrade couldn't come into a deal in time enough for the show. And then he also reported that Impact Wrestling is wanting and is expecting the return of Laredo Kid very soon. Though exact date hasn't been revealed, it does kind of align with the clips that we received, or we've kind of the promo out there for Bound for Glory that is scheduled for October 23rd. They have put out a promo in which they've showed AAA, New Japan, AEW possibly participating. So it would make sense to see a AAA star there. Laredo Kid has worked for Impact before. He started with them back in May of 2017, where he teamed up with Garza Jr. himself. He also had runs in September 2018 and another run in 2019. His last match was on July 5th, 2019. So it's been a while since we've seen Laredo Kid, but I just want to get your thoughts on this. It's very interesting, as, again, Impact has been very open about working with other promotions. First, let's start out with Andrade. What were your thoughts on, whether he should have been the one instead of Jay White to come out? Maybe, are you surprised, not surprised that they couldn't come to an agreement on this?
I'm not surprised. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I'm not surprised at all. That was actually, we reported that. That was one of the hang-ups with getting a deal with AEW, was that Andrade was very specific about wanting creative control, and a lot of places just aren't willing to kind of give up that, obviously. I mean, even AEW wasn't. Like, Tony Khan, it was reported at least, that Tony Khan agreed to listen to Andrade's ideas about the finishes involving his character, but that the final word with him, and that was the big sticking point, was he wanted creative control over his finishes. So I can see, especially at your biggest show of the year, Slammiversary, where you might not want somebody that you're not 100% certain will do exactly everything you want. I mean, not that Andrade isn't professional, but there's been a lot of weird things that happened in Impact over the years. So I can see them being skittish when that was a sticking point for him.
Mm-hmm. I think that so we've been complaining for a while now that they haven't been building anything for his Triple Mania match.
Yeah.
And any of this. And I'm beginning, this adds an element of clarity to why this might be the case. They might have had plans to do this in Impact. I kept wanting to say AAA. I'm sorry. In Impact, they might have been wanting to do it in Impact with this feud to build to give that momentum going into AAA, and because of negotiation issues, they couldn't do it.
Also,
that said,
go ahead. Sorry. You can continue on your point. This is just kind of a side tangent. Go ahead.
So that said, I don't think Jay White was the right fit for that. If they couldn't get Andrade, I don't think Jay White was the right guy for it, because now you're building for New Japan and you're building for kind of a secondary thing in New Japan. I think if Impact is getting the worst deal out of this forbidden doorway right now.
Yeah, they really are. They're getting the short end of the stick every single time.
But Chris Bay did get to join Bullet Club, so hopefully he'll get some of that merchandise money now.
Well, yeah, I'll get into this week, in Impact, wasn't quite a successful partnership, but anyways, let's continue.
But yeah, that was my thoughts, is that, to answer the question directly, no, I don't think that, I think Andrade was the right choice and not Jay White, because it would have been better for Impact, it would have been better for AAA, it would have made this whole period that is supposed to be historic feel more historic and monumental, whereas Jay White feels more like an afterthought.
Yeah, it does. Now, what are your thoughts real quick on Laredo Kid making a possible return to Impact Wrestling?
I'm excited. The first time we saw him come in was part of a lot of AAA talent sharing with Impact. We got to see Pentagon become World Heavyweight Champion in that period of time. And so I hope that this is, he's been there enough and he's familiar enough that I think even without the name cachet of somebody like being Pentagon Jr., that we could really see him in some important and exciting matches. We've seen his work against Kenny Omega. He's one of the best in the world, and hopefully a larger platform to display that. I'm really excited for his appearance in Impact. I think this is a much bigger deal for Impact than it is for Laredo Kid, but I think he can make the best of it and exploit that to move up to the next level too.
Yeah.
I think, I'm pretty much in the same area. I think Impact has already had success with him. He is a known commodity in Impact. They can build off of his history in Impact as well as his presence as being one of the biggest indie stars right now to really do big things with him. This is one of the few areas where I feel like Impact is not getting screwed. They're getting they're kind of getting a golden ticket with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I agree. Overall, this is really the place for cross, promotional work and partnerships. And if it's stories that lead to Bound for Glory or, just a way to spice up the roster, because Impact does have more of a lean roster, you got to, continue to add more to it, especially say if he does land in the X division. They've been playing with kind of the same key people now for, over a year. So to add somebody new to that, I think would breathe life into it. Or if they may be, I don't know if we'll be after Andrade and Kenny at Triple Mania and they reference, Kenny and Laredo Kid again. I don't know, but I do feel like there's a lot of options that they can explore and really kind of utilize in having someone who does have a bit of a crossover appeal like Laredo Kid. So I agree that this would be something that Impact would actually benefit from, and they wouldn't get the short end of the stick with that. I do want to make a note that this week on Impact we had two fairly interesting matches of note. As kind of Dusty mentioned, Chris Bay getting some of that Bullet club money. Maybe not yet, because we did start off the show with the Good Brothers versus Jay White and Chris Bay. With the Good Brothers winning that match, they ended up planting the Magic Killer on Chris Bay for the pin. It did seem like they had some pretty good, teamwork, at the beginning, but it wasn't successful enough to get a win at the end. Who knows if this means we'll continue to see them together, or because they weren't successful, maybe we're one and done. I highly doubt it, but I do feel like the team of Jay White and Chris Bay should have some more. We need to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we had Rich Swann and Willie Mack versus Eric Young, Violent by Design, accompanied by Eric Young. We had Rhino and Diener as the two competitors representing Violent by Design. And Rich Swann and Willie Mack won this match, with Rich Swann planting the 450 splash on Rhino. So that is, pretty good for Rich Swann and Willie Mack. They haven't had very many wins in the column as of late. Even though the tag team championships are back on the Good Brothers, hopefully there's still a bigger story to tell with the tag team title scene. And also we are going to have Impact Wrestling Homecoming this Saturday, which is July 31st. We are going to crown the first ever Homecoming Queen and King. So it's a mixed tag tournament happening throughout that night. And as far as some interesting news, we did learn Alicia Edwards and Hernandez are going to be teaming up. We also have some teams such as Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green, Falaba and Tasha Steeles, Petey Williams and Jordan Grace. But also tonight, Deonna Purrazzo announced that she is going to be participating in that tournament, though we don't know who her partner is yet. So it could reveal maybe somebody big outside of the company to be her partner. But who?
Yeah.
Probably not, though. I have a feeling no.
Almost definitely not. But I want to throw that into the universe.
Yes. Well, Impact on social media did acknowledge that she has big matches coming up in AAA for the Reina de Reinas Championship and for the NWA as part of their Empower tournament. So there is some acknowledgement that the woman is busy. She has things to do. And on top of that, she is going to be part of the King and Queen tournament at Homecoming. Also at Homecoming, this will be a very interesting match, especially for Lucha Libre fans, is Josh Alexander will be defending the X Division Championship against Taurus. So,
ooh.
Yes.
Yeah, very exciting.
So keep an eye out on that. I think that's going to be probably one of the better wrestling matches of the entire night. And as someone with the size and strength of, Josh Alexander, you also have Taurus, who has size, strength, agility, all of the above. So
Speed.
And speed,
yeah.
Yes. So I'm very, very intrigued by this. That's definitely going to be a match I have my eye on. I will be watching as part of Homecoming. So that is this week in Impact Wrestling. As we talked about AAA, Dusty, you have a little bit of AAA news.
Yeah, not a whole lot, but Triple Mania is still slated to happen on Saturday, August the 14th. And it seems like that date is now set in stone regardless of what happens.
Thanks,
with
Mexico.
The COVID, yeah. It's interesting. But we're seeing small overtures. If you follow Sam Adonis on social media, you'll know he's back in Mexico for the first time since Rey de Reyes, which means moves are being made.
Yeah.
I kind of expected, he was very subtle to begin with, but he was literally posting pictures of rings today. So, like wrestling ring, the AAA ring. So moves are being made. I'd wager we may be having a press conference or some other big promotional event for Triple Mania within the next week. Promotion pretty much has to ramp up in the next week to kind of build for some of these stories, especially not necessarily that they're catering to an international audience, but when you have Deonna Purrazzo and Kenny Omega there wrestling for championships, like you need your international audience regardless. So it'll be interesting to see what they kind of come up with and what they announce in the next week. Stay tuned to both luchacentral.com and the podcast for more info. As it becomes available, we'll have all the news next week.
I would speculate that we've been quiet on Sam Adonis because AAA, as Dusty's reported and I've been observant of, has pretty strict quarantining procedures so he probably had to stay in a hotel for a week and a half before they let him anywhere near anything. So I just wanted to tie that back in with some of this other COVID prep stuff we've been talking about. The government may not take the regulations seriously, but AAA has been a company that consistently has. So just wanted to toss that in there.
So next in line, MLW, and they finally released the Battle Riot, which you can find on YouTube. It is free. The entire Battle Riot 3 is available to watch. It's almost about 90 minutes, which, isn't surprising because it is a 40-man battle royal.
Yeah.
It's more than a battle royal because they can get pinned and submitted, and it's just madness.
I was gonna say,
it's fun. Yeah, it's so fun.
It's definitely. I loved the introduction. Are you ready to riot? I mean, it is not a royal. It is a battle riot. So as Brendan had mentioned, the rules are different where, of course, there is no disqualification, but you can do kind of traditional battle royal rules over the top rope. But people can also be eliminated by submission or pinfall. So I do not envy the referees in this match because you are in the middle. Usually in battle royals, they can stay on the outside and they, can stay away from the action, but they had to have at least one ref in there or just one ref in there.
They did have their ref staff on the floor for those over-the-top eliminations, too.
Yeah. I guess I don't envy the one ref that had to be in there.
I imagine they were all backstairs playing rock, paper, scissors. As the person who always watches the referees now that I've done some ref training, I did want to mention that, too. So you led me right to it.
Yes. So before we had the Battle Riot, the show opened with the owner of Azteca Underground, Cesar Duran, formally coming out to welcome the audience. And of course the audience loved it. They ate it up. And what I'm thinking, and I was thinking when this was happening, is I don't think we've ever seen Cesar Duran in a live audience like this. We remember seeing him in Lucha Underground, but that was a TV show that was produced. This time around, it was a live wrestling show. So I was curious to see how his demeanor, how his promos would come across in a live environment. And for me, overall, I thought it worked very well. I felt like you could get a sense of who he was. The fans were receptive to it. At first the fans were very inviting and welcoming, and then he kind of cut him down a little bit, which is just the right amount of El Jefe to do that.
But they loved that he did it.
They chanted louder for him.
Yes.
The lucha chants were incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I thought that was very cool to see this, the essence of a character like Cesar Duran finally be in front of a live wrestling audience. And I think that this is a very good sign for what's ahead of Azteca Underground. Speaking of, he also revealed that MLW officials have also made him an official matchmaker. So he is going to have matchmaking power in MLW, which that adds very much intrigue into, again, Azteca Underground and MLW and this whole dynamic. However, he was interrupted during his promo by Jordan Oliver and Myron Reed of Injustice, and there was a part where made me laugh where Caesar asked, "Who the F are you?" And that just was perfect. Like, yes, it's just the right amount of touch to this. And they came out, they, said that they wanted, because he now was a matchmaker, that they wanted a chance at the World Tag Team titles against Los Parks. And that is when we got the reveal of Konnan and LAX. Of course, the new LAX that we mentioned last week.
Yes.
With Slice Boogie, Danny Limelight, and Dr. Julius Smokes. I know Danny and Slice have been getting the majority of, again, the limelight, pun intended. But Dr. Julius Smokes came out, each of them were able to kind of to hype up the crowd, and Konnan pretty much said that LAX could make a claim for the tag team titles. And then a brawl came out between the two factions, and so the crowd pop. It was a great way to introduce Caesar. It was a great way to introduce to the new LAX. I hope that this is a program that we see in Justice versus LAX, because these are some bad men who want to face each other. And if that means there's some implications for number one contendership and the tag titles, I'm also for that as well. I'm good.
And Danny is now Danny Rivera instead of Danny Limelight?
Well, so yes, and that's a little historical. So Danny has previously in the independent scene had gone by Rivera. And actually in MLW, he's just going by Rivera, no Danny. But he is also using the moniker the Radioactive Poppy. So there's still some playing names in there. But out here, actually on the West Coast, he was a part of a tag team called Los Primos Riveras. And he was Danny Rivera, and his tag team partner was Gino. And then he evolved into Danny Limelight, and then now he went to Danny Rivera, and now he's just Rivera. So that if we follow that, it's a little complicated, but for those who know, that actually kind of makes sense.
And that punk Oliver called him Limelight anyway.
Well, I feel like Limelight is still part of the moniker, so I feel like whether it's going to be, it's going to somehow be incorporated into maybe an adjective or a descriptor instead of more of a noun. We're getting proper into grammar, or part of his name or whatever.
We bring proper education on this show.
Proper education. But at least the way that he's being praised on MLW television and MLW, he is just Rivera. Fascinating. Interesting. Yeah. But next, though, we did have the Battle Riot, and I'm just going to specifically list some of the Lucha Libre names that were in the Battle Riot as far as their entrance numbers. I'm not getting into eliminations just because there was so much. You could find that all.
It was so chaotic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Just go to MLW's YouTube page. Again, the entire Battle Riot 3 is available for free. But you had TJP coming up at number 3. I forgot he was a heel here, so the crowd booed him. New signee Lee Moriarty came out at number 4. Ares came out at number 8, and he came out with a really cool Falcon Arrow on Moriarty. On Lee Moriarty. So automatically the fans were into it. Gringo Loco came out at number 9, and Zenshi came out at number 10. I do have to say, I think Zenshi had one of the more kind of electrifying performances, the more standout performances of Battle Riot. I know that on social media, his double Pele kick is making the rounds. He also had a moment where he flew outside of the ring onto the timekeeper's table. So I think that, when you have a battle royal, sometimes you do have, certain people who make those performances that stand out and can help establish a career, a la Johnny Mundo, a la, Kofi Kingston. I feel like this was Zenshi's kind of standout moment throughout the Battle Riot. Yeah, so a big congratulations to Zenshi's performance at the Battle Riot. It was not easy. He came out number 10. We did see kind of a grouping of the luchadors all in that. I mean, I mentioned Ares number 8, Gringo Loco number 9, Zenshi number 10, Aramis at number 11. And he had such a cool Hurricane Rana on Gringo Loco. And then Gringo Loco held him up and changed that into he changed it into a tilt-a-whirl head scissors. So that I thought was a really fun sequence. And great way to start for Aramis. Savio Vega came in at number 14 with the kendo stick cause he ain't playing. Number 17 and 18 were LAX. Slice Boogie came out at 17 and Rivera came out at 18. Matt Cross came out at 19. So again, we're seeing there was method to this madness.
I do want to qualify. LAX were allegedly two different numbers. They just came out together. So they're
Yes.
already establishing the LAX vibe by doing that. So
Yeah, very cool.
Yes, Matt Cross at number 19. We did have a spot where we thought we saw LA Park at 28. However, it was soon revealed that it was not LA Park whatsoever, but Tom Lawler, who had actually come out at number 2 and had been previously eliminated, coming back in the gear of LA Park. One of the Von Erichs, unmasked him, and we found out that he just tried to sneak his way in to this. A point of note, at 35, we had Alexander Hammerstone. 38 was King Muertes, and 39 was Gino Medina. Hammerstone ended up winning the whole thing, so he now has the opportunity for a title shot for the MLW heavyweight championship. And so this is a much long carried out storyline between him and Contra, especially against Jacob Fatu, who has pretty much said, I'm not giving you a title shot. Now he doesn't have any other choice because Alex Hammerstone has won the Battle Riot. So again, if you have the time, still, especially if you're really more focused on the Lucha Libre action, starting, I would say, from number 8 all the way to about, 20s. And even when you get into those late 30s, there's some really good points in there. And again, my personal opinion, I think Zenshi had one of the biggest standout performances of this entire Battle Riot. So I hope that means good things along the way for him. It was also a great showing of all of the talent that they have drafted for this. Still not much information, again, how we're going to see Azteca Underground and MLW combine or how they're going to interact. But maybe we'll start to see something with a new mini-series that is going to premiere this August, and that is MLW Fusion Alpha, which is going to be serving as a prelude to the Fusion fall season. The way that the promo sets it up is that there's some dissension between MLW, or within MLW, sides are going to have to be taken. Alliances may need to be formed. So maybe this is where we start to see the division between MLW and Azteca Underground. We already know within the draft there were specific wrestlers who were, drafted on behalf of Azteca Underground, like Matt Cross, who was specifically, in his announcement, was drafted as part of Azteca Underground. And again, now that we know Cesar Duran is going to be a matchmaker, is that going to be exclusive to Azteca Underground? Is he also going to be able to make matches for MLW talent? Who knows? But I do think that the Battle Riot was a great way to start off this new chapter in MLW, and a great showing for all of the luchadors in this match. And Fusion will be starting out fairly soon, but keep an eye out for Fusion Alpha. That's going to be premiering soon in August.
Again, just want to jump in real quick. I don't think I heard you mention somebody, and I know you like to shout him out. Savio Vega, and a masked gimmick that looked suspiciously like Savio Vega.
Yes, I accidentally forgot about Ikiro Kwan?
Yes. Yeah,
yes, I did forget to mention that in all of my excitement. Go ahead, Brendan, though. I'm going to let you take this one.
Oh, well, I know you because you Tio, I believe you call him, Savio?
Well, he is Tio. He is Tio Savio Vega on the socials. But he's my Tio, your Tio, he's everybody's Tio. That's the way it goes.
Tio and Todos.
Yes. I wanted to throw that in there, and then I was just amused by the fact that that was a early 90s WWE gimmick from the era of such wonderful things as Max Moon. Mm-hmm. And they had Quan.
Shout out to Konnan.
Yeah. I was trying to think of there was another one that was just also neon and masked and awful. But then you had this ninja gimmick, and I don't know if Savio did it the first time around, but it looked an awful lot like Savio Vega under the mask to me this time.
I believe it was. I don't remember actually that point, but I did mention Savio as far as when he came in as number 14 with the kendo stick, because that kendo stick made its rounds throughout the show. Rivera ended up getting his hands on the kendo stick as well, which did not make Savio Vega happy, because you don't cane the Theo. Like, you get in trouble for caning your Theo.
Get your ass whooped.
Yep. You get you put the kendo, but you get the shankla afterwards.
I also hearing him try to form an alliance by saying, "Hey, Puerto Rico." So, you know.
Well, I mean, that was just implied. You got
he
LAX.
specifically said it, though.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought that they turned on him anyway, but he did try.
And I'm fairly certain that was him, because he was actually, Savio Vega was the first person eliminated. So yeah, between when he was eliminated and you know, when Akiro came out at number 32, there was plenty of time.
There were a couple other masked gimmicks that are akin to that, but none of them were quite clearly someone else that we talk about on the show. That's why I wanted to bring this particular one up, but just a little bit of fun.
Yeah, because good job, MLW. I'm very excited to see what comes up. Again, they did film matches, so there are some spoilers out there on the internet. I have made the decision that I am not going to talk about those spoilers until those episodes air as far as Fusion. So if you don't have the patience, go up and look them up yourself. But, you know, if you can be patient, make sure you stay tuned to the podcast, because then we're going to be running down new episodes of Fusion and Alpha Fusion, or Fusion Alpha, when they come out. Last but not least tonight, well, we have CMLL news with Brendan.
So, I mean, I just wanted to update people real quick on this. Again, CMLL is back in full swing. You can find some of their matches on YouTube. You can find a lot of results on Lucha Central. I have been covering the Leyenda de Plata tournament here because that's part of the pay-per-view schedule. It's also one of their unique tournaments. Quick pitch. If you want more CMLL, let me know. I can always add in more CMLL, but at this point, I'm covering the stuff that I think is going to be the most interesting. So we had the second half of the Leyenda de Plata, which featured Caristico, Virus, Negro Casas, Titan, Rey Cometa, Pulvora, Fugaz, and El Felino Jr. So it was again in Atomicos fashion. You had a battle royal, which set up the matches. All of these details are up on the website as to who wrestled who to advance. But the end match was Titan and Caristico, with Titan moving on to the finals. So it's going to be Templario and Titan for the Leyenda de Plata, which I think is going to be an amazing match. I don't think even CMLL's kind of conservative booking can contain this one too much. I think so I think we're going to see a lot of high flying action, some mask ripping, some I'd say some people getting thrown into the crowd, but I don't know if there's going to be a crowd at this match or not, because Mexico and COVID are just crazy. But yeah, that's once again. We had several guys, so this whole tournament is very interesting. Caristico, Virus, Negro Casas, Titan, Rey Cometa, Pulvora, Fugas, and Felino Jr. So any of those pair up into interesting matches. The Battle Royal itself was interesting. Go check it out. Also, again, blatant plug, results are up on Lucha Central.
Well, that is it for this week's episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget, of course, that, the Lucha Central Weekly podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. Make sure you visit luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. You can also follow Lucha Central on social media at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at LuchaCentralCom on Twitter. We plugged it earlier. LuchaCentral.com's YouTube page has lots of great content and matches. Of course, as we talked about, Brazo de Plata, Brazo de Plata and Super Porky, one and the same. Of course, there's a lot of content available online on YouTube. But while you're at it, please make sure that you check out the Lucha Central's YouTube page. And with that, well, if you got a few extra minutes, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, where can our listeners find you?
I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy, and I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321 and then T-shirt guy all spelled out. And I am on Instagram, Facebook, and all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me at the #Miranda, hashtag spelled out, on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not on Twitter, so, go ahead and follow the other guys. Follow Dusty, follow Lucha Central, follow Brendan on Twitter. I'll get the message somehow. No, don't you worry about it. And of course, again, for all of the other podcasts on the Lucha Central Podcast Network, make sure you check them out. There's lots of great content and information every week, including our sister show, the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast Espanol version, that goes up, and again, lots of great content. Especially if you're bilingual, you can get all of that there at luchacentral.com. Make sure you stay tuned to our episodes in the next few weeks as we're covering lots more stuff. We got you on AEW, WWE, Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, AAA, CMLL, that and so much more, as well as, hey, if any of you are independent wrestling fans, promoters, or wrestlers, make sure to reach out to us on social media. We'd love to plug you in the Indie Roundup because we are passionate about independent wrestling and we want to make sure it has a place on this show. So for Dusty Murphy and for Brendan Barr, my name is Miranda Morales. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back with you next week.